Well, hello there. Carol Dockum here with Beautiful Faces Going Places Women's Success Network. And I hope everyone had a beautiful, wonderful, happy, safe holiday Labor Day weekend. I know it is a time for us to kind of unwind, unplug, and enjoy, just time, festivities with family and friends. So I hope you had a great holiday weekend. I'm excited to be back in the office and with our regularly scheduled programming here at Beautiful Faces Going Places Women's Success Network. If you're new to Beautiful Faces Going Places, I just want you to know that we are an online chamber of commerce supporting women in business, small business owners, and entrepreneurs. We offer so many different ways for you to plug in, to spark conversations, make new connections, and create opportunities for yourselves. All about visibility, education, and connections. And as I mentioned, it's education, right? As entrepreneurs, we need to continuously be educating ourselves with information and resources so that we can thrive, right? And grow in our businesses. So I'm excited to host our Mini-Masterclass Series here. It is all about learning and growing, right? So today's topic is thinking into greater results. So what I want to share with you, one of my very favorite quotes: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right, by Henry Ford. That is one of my favorite quotes. I truly believe that there's so much power in that. And there's so much truth in that famous quote, right? So we are here to talk about thinking into greater results with Chris Dyer. She is our host today. Chris Dyer is an intuitive breakthrough coach for entrepreneurs. She is our mini masterclass host today. And this class is designed to help you identify and overcome limiting beliefs so that you can set clear goals and take action to achieve them. Chris Dyer is an intuitive breakthrough coach for entrepreneurs, offering a unique experience of training and self-healing modalities to create lasting impact and results for her clients. She is a certified health, life, and leadership coach and personal trainer with over 30 plus years of experience with clinical education, leadership, sales and marketing, and entrepreneurship. She is a national best-selling author and international speaker and legacy creator in her other business endeavors. Let me just say, she is a serial entrepreneur. That's what I love about her. Her Science of Success series and programs teach her clients how to quickly identify the root cause of blockages and are shown actionable steps to align their energy and habits to create sustainable momentum and growth. These processes allow them to release past traumas and self-sabotaging behaviors to create room for clarity, for courage, and confidence so that they more powerfully own their successes, expand possibilities, and have more zest and fulfillment in their lives, relationships, and businesses. She offers many ways for entrepreneurs to work together with her, either through group facilitations, workshops, and one-to-one focus time. Her expansive question is, how far do you want to go? And how fast? Please help me welcome the fabulous Chris Dyer.
Thank you, Carol. That was a mouthful. I think I need to shorten.
Every word is meaningful. I love it.
Well, thank you, and I received that. That was actually something that I actually had to learn to do, was be able to receive the abundance, right? Whether that's a compliment, a smile, a show of appreciation. But as we add chronological time in our physical place here on this planet, in the physical dimension, is like we have accumulated so much knowledge. We've had so much experience, and so when we get this age, middle age and up, it's like we have a wealth of wisdom. And if we aren't really tapping into that wisdom, we're missing out on being who we fully can truly be. So Carol, I always appreciate the opportunity to come and have conversations. I don't like to think of myself, yes, I'm a teacher, but I don't want to be preachy. I want to lay down concepts that help you and the people in this group grow, take one step forward. It's using my experience, my knowledge, my wisdom to help someone move forward, and into greater results. And so for the topic today, thinking into greater results, it's an addition, it's an upgrade to actually a Bob Proctor program in Sandy Gallagher, the Thinking into Results program. And actually I had completed that program 2020, 2021. But we don't close the books, right? We keep growing, we keep learning, we keep putting ourselves out there, and following the energy is sort of a new concept that works for me. It's my personal success philosophy, is follow the energy. And what that is, when we're always being willing to upgrade, is the people that challenge you to upgrade your language and your concept of yourself. And it's proven that we can never outperform the current image that we have ourselves. And so whenever I'm in a room or having a conversation one-on-one, which is truly where I do my best work, because then the vulnerability comes out. When people can approach you and you can be real with them, and you can remove the stigmas and the stereotypes, that truly only happens in a one-to-one conversation, or you put it in a book. Well, guess what? That's happening also. That way people can receive you. You can meet them where they are. They can receive you at a time and a place that's best for them, and they don't have to worry about where they are in their life and their journey, or maybe they're actually struggling. They're having some conflicts or some problems or some pain in their life, whether it's in their business, it's in their relationships, maybe it's in their body. And so when we're trying to diagnose, there's my healthcare background coming up. When we're trying to diagnose really truly what the problems lie, we have a tendency in as humans, we are easily distracted, thinking that the solutions are truly outside of ourselves. Well, if I buy another program, if I buy another book, if I take another course, if I sign up for this or that, right? And we are just really kind of throwing our valued resources at things that may provide a temporary solution, or they may be one piece of the data we're looking for. But ultimately, truly, when we can do our own self-analysis and look within ourselves, particularly when we've lived a life full of education and experience, the answers truly lie within. So if we want to truly be in our best health possible, that lies within ourselves. When we want to truly have an amazing business and really truly stand out and build a brand from the ground up that leaves an impression with its members, with the world, that comes from within. That comes from us tapping into higher intelligence, which is also another Bob Proctor concept. And I'm sure there's lots of others. And by studying by many different mentors and guides out there, the information starts combining. It really seems very similar, and it truly is. It's just somebody else put their language on it. They applied their story to it. But truly, all the answers do lie within, and it's how we perceive ourselves, and it's how we can outthink. How can we work smarter and not harder? How can we make things easier for ourselves by truly simplifying? And in the health and wellness space, I'll just say it because I was a personal trainer, and I'm going to talk about a lot of P's this morning in the short time that we have together. And this is a inspired by coming from eWomen Network and having been at the conference this year in Dallas in August. And so, Carol, I know that you weren't able to be there, so I'm going to give you about half. And this is leaving room. This is like whetting the appetite. If you want more, please come find out. I don't want to give it all to you right now because it's too much. But as a personal trainer, personal performance is the way that we optimize how we show up in the world. And that's totally 100% accountable to us to want that for ourselves, because our personal performance affects everything. It affects how we think about ourselves. It affects how we set up and create the environment for success, for ourselves, for our family, for others, for our business. So Sandra mentions the 7 P's to profits. Well, naturally, I can borrow part of her content, but I can add an upgrade. And this is really all we're doing. Everything that's ever been invented or created is already out there. It's very rare to come up with something truly original, but we can add our own spice to it. We can add our own flavor and our own pizzazz. So in the spirit of elevation, I've added an 8P, and that's presence. And that's how we show up. Showing up for ourselves is the most crucial component of anything we do. And our self-concept is how we perceive our image and what's holding us back, what's keeping us shackled from really truly living in our brilliance is not fully embracing our imagination and creativity. That's what creates the difference. That's what separates us from, I like to use the term, the sea of sameness. How do we differentiate ourselves from other people maybe doing something similar in our industry? And when I cut my teeth on outside sales over 25 years ago, I mean, that's a paradigm I busted through 25 years ago. Right now, add the 30 years and a lot of more education and knowledge and how I'm applying that to be and sit in the position that I'm in now to help inspire other women in business. The self-concept. There are toxic habits, there are toxic emotions potentially that are keeping us from tapping into that originality, into that imagination, into that creativity. Nobody has written your story before. Nobody has read your story before. Nobody knows yet what you're capable of doing. You probably haven't tapped in yet the capability and the capacity that you have to create something bigger and greater than you ever imagined. Why is that? It's about the box that we put ourselves in, that society has put us in, that our identity roles that we have acquired and held on to. There's so many layers of what make us who we are and why we think and how we act and react. So the part of the premise of thinking into greater results is to change the way we think. And instead of react, how do we respond? That's a trained mind. Being able to control the mind, control our own mind and our reactions and our responses absolutely controls the results that we create. So in thinking into greater results, how can we think bigger and beyond? And so what I like to, when we're working with my clients, what I like to encourage them is to think above their business. And it's not really just about the business. It's more about life strategy. And I know we've had this conversation before. It's like a lot of people are playing very small. They don't know that they can create something bigger and better. It's easy, it's low-hanging fruit to borrow someone else's brand to create abundance or success or bring money into their life or their business. That is strictly a lifestyle business. It's easy. It's not that complicated. You follow a pattern, but it's not truly your brand if you're selling someone else's product. And so when we're talking about building a brand from the ground up, you really need to be life strategic, not just business strategic. It's how do you want to be remembered? Let's talk about legacy. Are you building a lifestyle business? Or are you building a legacy business? And when you're building a brand from the ground up, we have to think about the big picture, not just putting out fires the day to day, right? It's like, what would I really love? What do I want to create? How do I want to be remembered? How do I want to distinguish myself from another business or another group, maybe doing something similar? It's your experience. It's your story. It's how you've overcome your adversity. It's how you've created solutions from your adversity. And it's learning to step into a different identity. Honestly, we really have to be willing to step outside of what we currently think about ourselves and to become disentangled and disengaged with identities, emotions, construct of other people's making that aren't serving us. If it isn't part of our future, it doesn't belong in the present. Okay. So that's where we start leveling the playing field, is to decide right now what you want your future to be, right? And acting as if it's right here, right now. The future is now. Acting as if and embodying, again, borrowing from another trusted mentor, the Neville Goddard, the feeling is the secret. It's acting as if owning the future right now. That means loving your future self today. That means loving in your body, in the physical dimension, your mind and your body, that dimension. Loving your future self today means that you are doing everything within your power and your control to be at your optimal performance. That means treating your body with respect. That means loving yourself and giving yourself rest and recovery when you need it. It doesn't mean pushing and grinding and driving ourselves into the ground. That's an old hustle mentality. It's very masculine driven. It's a very heavy masculine driven. And guess what? That's the way we're conditioned. That is a conditioning that we need to be willing to disentangle ourselves with. And so I invite more of the feminine energy to come in. It is more of the nurture, the nature, the kind and compassion. We profess it. We want the world to be a kinder and more compassionate space and place, but that starts with us. And how are we being to ourselves, not being doers. We're not human doers, right? We're human beings, but when we really simplify and being in integrity with who we say we are, we like to show up, and there's an entrepreneur pride and ego. And because I am an observer of human nature, particularly in the entrepreneur space, because that's where I've been playing since 2005. There's a lot of hustle and grind mentality. There's a very masculine, excuse me, build. Hold please. And I should have had a clear glass there. But anyway, the hustle and grind, build, do needs to change. The finesse is where the feminine comes in. It's more ease, more flow, more flex, less grind, more grace. That's where I'm going. And that's the energy that I'm living in. And I am diligently, intentionally modeling for myself so that I can inspire other women in business to take on that modeling for themselves. How do you do it? Simplify to amplify. You've heard it. It's a cliche, but it absolutely is true. When we overcomplicate things, we add in distractions. We're spending our time, our valued time, which is our number one asset and resource. We give our time away to people that have nothing to do with us. They're not curious or even care about our business. They're just out to make their next dollar. Those aren't the people do you really want to be giving your time and attention to? Are you spending money with those people that truly aren't there for your best interest? And so then we become more intentional with the time that we give to people that are in our spaces, that do care, that do value, that we want everyone to win, right? It's not about just how many dollars can I put in my bank account. It's like, how can I truly impact the next person and intentionally show up and be that person? So we've talked about presence and how we're showing up, but I want to talk about personal power. And that sort of leads in from where we're talking about with how we're conditioned from institutional training, conditioning to give our power away. We give it away to social media. We give it away to television show. We give it away to influencers. We give it to people who look like on the outside, they have it all put together, but they're still doing the duck paddle under the surface. Okay, I've observed this many times over. How many different people of influence have I given my time and attention to? And then when you really look behind the curtain and see how they're behaving, how are they treating themselves, how are they treating other people? Yeah, they're not really in alignment and integrity with who they say they are. And that takes time to discern that for yourselves. To be in integrity, again, means to being who you say you are when nobody's watching, and being that way for yourself. Okay. It means that you're not creating drama for yourself. We don't want to create it on the outside, but we don't also want to be creating it on the inside. And where does drama come from? Drama comes from the stories that we tell ourselves. It comes from the conditioning and the expectations that we've set, imprinted on our mind, that have to be unlearned, right? We need to learn to become neutral and not be allowing ourselves to be triggered and activated, because that's actually where FOMO comes from. And that causes us to make decisions where we spend our time and our money a little more frivolously. And so when we take back our time, we take back our control, we start asking ourselves the questions. And this is how we think ourselves into greater results. It's watching where we're spending our time, the habits, catching ourselves in those self-sabotaging loops. And for myself, for an example, I caught myself. I went to a free in-person workshop, and the intent was to be sold into a high-level program. But when you know yourself, when you know where your potential triggers are, you can't be sold anymore. You know yourself, it's like, okay, I recognize that. And then you save yourself a lot of time and aggravation instead of continually falling into the same trap. So doing some self-reflection and introspection teaches you where your personal power is and where we continue to give it away. So again, as I'm sharing it, it's not a judgment. These are personal observations that I've witnessed within myself, that I've observed them, called myself on my own BS, right? My own belief systems, my own BS. You can interpret that any way you want to. That's being in true integrity. It's like, oh, there it is. It's like, yeah, I don't really need that right now. My business doesn't need that, because I can trust myself. And Caroline, you and I talked about divine timing, knowing and trusting and having faith that our results, our abundance is right here, right now. We just have to be willing to release our expectation of a timetable, trust, maybe do some fine-tuning, adjustments, and pivots. We don't need to be fixed. We don't need to be put back together. We are complete and whole as we are. And we have enough experiences and lifetime wisdom to know the difference. And that's what truly sets us apart. But let's talk about people, the people in our lives. I had an amazing conversation this morning with my business partner, who's having a particularly challenging crossroads in her life right now that doesn't have anything to do with our business partnership. This is her private life. I've always said, and I'm very intentional about this, that I always leave white space on my calendar to make time for people. When we time block ourselves so heavily, one appointment after another, one obligation, one commitment, it doesn't leave time in our calendar for white spaces for the people in our lives that truly matter. And I firmly believe that it's okay to maybe ask for a little extra time to take care of somebody who's an important, integral part of your personal life, your business life, to make time and space for. I will always put people in front of processes, because I can always reschedule something that I don't have a timed commitment for. I can always ask to meet somebody at a later date. I can push a connect to another time, because I believe in divine timing. And when somebody important needs me right here, right now, family member, whatever, it's like, I'm going to make time for that, because I'm intentional. In the big picture, in the big scheme of things, those people will remember that you were there for them at their deepest, darkest hour. That's how we truly change the world, is one person at a time, being there, allowing other people to be vulnerable, and us holding that space with them. It's actually not intentional, but it's also an amazing strategy for creating relationships that matter, that will be with you through thick or thin. When people know that they can trust you, that you can be there for them at their worst time, they will make space and they will remember you at their best time. That's positioning. And it's not manipulative, it's real. And everyone wins. You know, and when we're thinking about working above our business, again, how do we want to be remembered? Well, on my last day, I want to be remembered as the woman who was there for me in my deepest, darkest time. Doesn't matter how much money I have in my bank account. It doesn't matter how much I know. It doesn't matter how much experience I've had. It's how did I make that person feel important, right? That is the most beautiful way to position yourself in somebody's sphere of influence. But it also, when we talk about positioning, creating social impact, how are you showing up and placing yourselves inside opportunities to create impact in your community? Placing yourself, giving yourself time, maybe a little bit of resources. And this is in my terms, I kind of call this tithing a little bit. And I don't like the word tithing because it does have a religious context. But if we're willing to give away, it's not really giving away, it's adding value without an expectation of return, like 10% of our time, right? Maybe it's a person that needs you. Maybe it's an organization, a nonprofit that you can add value to, whether it's your time, your experience, your wisdom, maybe it is financial. To me, that's making a positive deposit into the bank account of the law of reciprocity, the karmic law. It's what you put out, right? If you put out 10% of whatever it is of value you have to contribute to make someone else's world a better place, that comes back to you. That is the law of reciprocity. And it's actually talked about into thinking and results, but it's also the karmic law. And it's also one of my personal valued quotations that I've been carrying with me in my personal psyche, my personal philosophy since I was 4 years old. So I'm a 50-year-old overnight success, right? Ha ha. What is an overnight success? It's not. It's decades in the making, and you are working on your overnight success right now. But my favorite quote, and it's actually embedded in my website, is those who bring beauty to the world cannot keep it from themselves. That exactly, in a beautiful, feminine, brilliant undertone, speaks about the law of reciprocity, the karmic law. You cannot give yourself and your value and your beauty without also receiving that. And we talked about, blocking, a self-sabotaging behavior for women who were very empowered, very driven, very conscientious, a member that go and grind mentality. Is like, are we blocking our own abundance if we're not allowing that to come back to us? And I found myself in that same, it's a spiral, it's a loop. Where can we stop that? Where can we own our personal power? Where can we position ourselves? Where can we just be present and allow ourselves to receive and acknowledge all of what we ever will be and have, we already own right here and now. So Carol, I'm going to ask you all to come on to answer questions, to share screen, whatever it is that you would like, that I can help you all, any questions that you have, into helping you get to the next step, into thinking greater, raising your personal vibration, raising your self-concept, the image of yourself, so that you can be the fullest, brightest, most brilliant version of who you were meant to be and live into your purpose.
Well, all I can say is this was amazing, Chris. And I just loved how you laid it really all out for us. And I think my biggest takeaway is just, how are we showing up for ourselves? And just creating that awareness that we can think ourselves into greater results. And it always boils down to our belief systems, right? And our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and how we perceive, the world around us. But basically how we perceive ourselves. And if we want to think into greater results, we need to think of ourselves with a greater vision, a greater light, and focus on our individual gifts and talents and our, yeah, I think that's the whole thing about self-concept. In order to think into greater results, we need to have that self-concept that we are there, right? That we can create whatever it is that we want to create. I know each of us here on today's mini masterclass, we all have different goals, dreams, desires. So whatever it is that we want to achieve, we can. It's, well, number one, it already exists, right? We already have it within ourselves. But it's a matter of seeing ourselves, visualizing us as if we're already there, and then, yes, taking the action steps to get there. I mean, we can't just sit here and visualize, right? We have to take action. But I think if we can embrace that new self-concept of greatness, we'll step into it, right? Step into that vision of becoming and allowing and being. And it boils down to our self-concept. So that's my biggest takeaway. How about you, Natalie?
There we go.
You're muted.
Yeah, my mouse was lost somewhere on my screen. You know, Chris, it was great to hear things in a lot of ways, you know, as you shared with my education, but then also with my wellness background too, is one of my SCORE counselors said, you've read all the books you can read. It's time to put into action the things that you already know. And I think that's that whole part about believing enough in ourselves that I think the minute we waver, we unintentionally allow others determine what we should do or be, because every person wants to be approved, wants to be accepted. And so I think sometimes we get caught in that catch of, well, I'm supposed to do this. Who says, right? And on what basis? So I think if we can ask those questions, maybe we are in the right place. But I think a lot of times we get sidetracked to that. And then also the world is definitely pounding on us every day to be something else, especially the truer we are to ourselves, the less the world likes who we are and tries to influence to be different. They want us to follow the norm. They want us to follow the rest. No, we're not meant to do that. And so I think that's what your message was to me, was, you know, being more aware of myself, that, yeah, I do want others to like and give me that affirmation. But I also want to make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to, because like you said, in that legacy, then I'm going to leave naturally the things and the trail that are supposed to be the way people can remember me. That's a struggle sometimes. I've kind of been in that myself when I thought I was going to be a teacher forever. Well, I am a teacher. I'm the educator. It just doesn't have to be in the classroom anymore. So having and heard that really helps to allow me to change, because I think that's the big thing for people, that we get into a groove or a purpose and it's maybe not serving us. But to change out of that is really, 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 really risky, because it changes habits. It changes the way we perceive ourselves and others ourselves. But if we allow that to be, those good things are going to show through, and then it will be worth it all too. So big challenges there. I like the part of the BS. We can have a lot of BS, or we can make sure we're living in our BS of our belief system. So
this is great feedback. And I hope you don't mind if I challenge you a little bit.
Please do. Please do.
Because that's part of the upgrade process.
Yes,
is to a great mentor, guide, teacher will not teach you how to think or teach you what to think. They'll teach you how to think, right? I mean, that's language is so intentional. Okay. So when we actually, and this is another way that I've actually, like, quantum leaps from 4 years ago, is being super intentional in the words that I select, that I choose to identify with. So one way that I immediately change my self-concept is to no longer identify as the underdog. Okay, it might be part of my past story. It doesn't have any room in my current story, right? So I don't even identify with underdog. It's you know, it's an old story written in an old book somewhere. Okay, been there, done that.
Mhm.
Because if it still lives in our consciousness, it's still going to keep coming up in our subconscious. So learning to disidentify with words, identities, roles, feelings, emotions, toxic emotions
Mhm.
is the key to being very present, making a different decision that will absolutely alter your future.
Mhm.
So I'm going to challenge you on the word risky. Is it really risky? Only because you say it is. It's not
Right.
risky for me,
Mhm.
right? All life is, we know this, is one experiment after another. We need to be taking massive, messy action. That's how we learn. That's just like a kid. Stand up, fall down, right? And it's our conditioning that keeps us held in place. Even as entrepreneurs, even as free as we think we are, we still have institutionalized thinking.
Mhm.
We have to be willing to really, that's being in integrity. It's like looking at every layer in our lives that is keeping us mired in the past.
Mhm.
So being super intentional on the words we select, it's not risky, it's not hard. It's hard if you say it is.
Right.
That's your paradigm. Your
Mhm.
paradigm is another Bob Proctor word, right? That is a space that you're occupying in. It is not the space that I'm occupying in, right? Because I've learned to train myself to think, use language, treat myself in a different, right?
Mhm.
It's not greater than or less than. It's just like I have a different understanding and awareness, right? And as we keep doing this work, we ascend in our levels of awareness so that we're so self-aware. It's like, ooh, wow. Everything makes more sense. And we catch ourselves. It's like, ooh, where did that come from? What does that mean? And you don't allow it to, like, if you mean, here's a great example. And this is all from my own personal experience, meaning please never know that I would be judging you,
No, no.
because that would mean I would be judging myself, right? I'm sharing my experience. but I have to let people know that, because if I say something without the purest intention, they could potentially take that as something negative. And I never, ever, I'm so intentional about making sure if I open up a loop for someone that triggers them, that brings their energy down, that I can give them a tool to close that loop, right? That's me being in integrity, right? And I've worked with so many people, different coaches, and I've paid a lot of money for coaches that'll open up loops of shame and blame and guilt. It's like, well, what did you do that for? What were you thinking? Right? That's a shame loop. That is the last place I want to take someone. That is the lowest vibrating energy. It's like, no, thank you. I used to be able to do that all by myself. Right? I never, ever want to leave anybody feeling less than, only in the spirit of increase. So when you encounter somebody out in public, a networking group, maybe there's an influence out there that you admire and you aspire to be like that person. And this actually happened to me in New York recently. So I encountered a respected person in a room full of 150 people. And I was going through a state of transition myself. So also when you know that you're going through a life transition, be very cautious of not allowing yourself to be triggered by emotions, because you're in a vulnerable state. And that was something that I had to learn for myself. It's like, wow, okay. You know, self-compassion, self-love is paramount when you're in a place of transition, maybe grief, despair, you've had a life transition, you've had a loss, you've moved, right? These are all things that in our nervous system, right? Our parasympathetic nervous system, we're in a place that we're still in recovery. That's a very vulnerable place to be. So when you're continuing to show up and put ourselves out there, and you can get triggered by a lot of people thinking, oh my God, there's the imposter syndrome. There's the I'm not enough. I'm not trying enough. I don't make enough money. That's a shame spiral. Okay. And so when you encounter somebody who is really super confident and it almost errs on the side of arrogance, there's a question to ask yourself. And it just, I had this wash over me. I met this person in the room, like in physical proximity, and this feeling of shame just washed over me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, this person is arrogant, right? I mean, they just had this air of superiority and all this and that. And it's like, I was like, what's that about? And I didn't want to give it any attention because my higher thinking knew better.
Mhm.
And so I just let that feeling, that emotion just kind of sit there. I didn't give it any energy. I just let it sit there. And, you know, it took me a couple of weeks to really process that. It wasn't about him. He was just really confident. It was me and my perception of myself, my self-worth, my self-concept of being in a vulnerable state that made me perceive him as being arrogant,
Mhm.
which clearly, no, he's just really confident. He's dressed to the nines. He's just got this air of confidence, right? And you've met those people in the room. So whenever you encounter people and you get a wave of something, what was that about? Instead of judging it, instead of judging yourself or placing you in a place of low vibrating energy, just let it like water off a duck's back, just let it flow off of you and just kind of sit there, and the answers will come to you. You will be in a place where you can start analyzing the data and realize that feeling was 100% me feeling imposter syndrome, being in a place of shame, had nothing to do with him at all. So when we start, it makes us great personality readers, right? When you approach people in a room or you see people, and it just makes you wiser. It's like, okay, I see that person for what they truly are, or wow, I see me for how I truly am, right? That's being in integrity. It's not about the other 99%. It's not about them.
Yeah.
It's about how we're feeling in ourselves. But then, I mean, to douse that, the opposite of shame is love, unconditional self-compassion and self-love for ourselves. Like, okay, I recognize that now. I don't need to judge it anymore. Nobody can call me on that anymore. It's like, I see it for what it is. And those are the lessons. That's the juicy good life. Is like when you know yourself and you know where you've been triggered, where you could potentially be tripped up again,
Mhm.
just neutralize it.
Yeah.
And then give it love. What would love do? It's like, oh, just love myself. Okay, I forgive myself. Yeah, I used to think like that.
Mhm.
Not anymore. I
Yeah.
choose better. I want better. I decide better for myself.
Mhm. Yeah, that comes to a point where you said about really being present, that there are times I tend to be more intuitive than others, as you know, different people have certain gifts of things, and sometimes it can be a curse or a blessing. But something my uncle shared with me years ago was when I go into a room of lots of people, that I actually need to create like a shield that isn't keeping me from people, but protecting the emotional part of me so that I can be present, that I can read something without feeling it so quickly that then I'm stuck in that, is this me or is it them? Because then I get caught in, like you said, you get caught in that spiral and suddenly I'm not present.
Right.
So that's something that I like. When I hear that, it reminds me of his words. It said, when you go into that lots of people, you kind of have to put up that filter that allows you to be there, listen, hear enough of something to decide, that's something I need to work on. Talk about it later. But then you can still be there for that person. So
Right.
kind of good to hear. That's what today has been really good, to hear things that I've heard before, learned before, said in a way that says what I knew, but kind of polishes that up for today. What does that mean today? So thank you.
No, my pleasure. And it is the repetition that we need because we're human.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We're we're all flawed and
We're
we're
a
all
work in
fabulous
progress.
at the same time, right?
That's
It's
right.
the paradox.
What's the saying? As long as we're here, that means God is not done with us yet. So keep
Yeah,
working.
yeah. But it's the inner work is the most important work,
Mhm.
and it's the most overworked, underrated work.
Yeah.
I mean,
Makes
being
the
an
run be.
entrepreneur, yeah, it teaches you what you're made of.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, all of life is going through being willing to experiment and learning what we're not as much as learning who we are, what we are.
Mhm.
I love that, Chris. I love how you said to just take, take massive, messy action, right? And I think you made a comment about your 50-year-old success story, right?
In the making, yeah. 50
In
year,
the
yeah, actually,
making.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. That just resonated with me so tremendously. It's like, I feel like on this entrepreneurial journey, I don't have everything figured out. I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm experimenting. I always say, just create it, put it out in the universe, and then you tweak it along the way. And then the next thing it's happening, right? But believe me, it's taking that big, what did you say, massive, messy action, and just pushing through, the fear factors and all of those self-limiting beliefs that many of us have. And it's called being human, right? And a lot of that programming happened years ago, as children, as a reflection of our environments, right? We take that on. I really resonated when you mentioned something about being put in a box and then being defined by others, whether it's institutions, family, whatever it is, we're put in boxes and identified with and identifying with that box. But once we can think into greater results, just the possibilities are just endless. So, Chris, for me, I feel like you really laid it out there of creating that self-awareness, right? Of our thoughts, our feelings, and that we do have the power within ourselves to change those paradigms, right?
I'm going to offer you another identity to consider adding into your job description, your whatever, your consciousness. When we really want to truly think above our business, being an inventor, that allows you to really dig into your imagination and your creativity. And that's it's like every day I'm upgrading myself, as you should be. Every day when you show up and to do the work, you do the inner work, you're giving yourself that time for introspection, reflection, reading, keep pouring into what's going to serve you best in your body, mind, and in your soul. We should always be upgrading your self-image, your self-concept, and not to be better than someone else. It's just to be a better version of yourself. That's the only responsibility you have, is to be the best version of yourself. And when I took that on earlier this year, it's like everything else is just falling into place. It's like, yep, my primary job is to be the best version of myself. And I happen to have a couple businesses, right? I mean, that comes secondary. Your relationship with yourself first, being your first soulmate, your own soulmate, right? Because you really ultimately the only person you have to answer to.
I love that. And I feel like this has been an amazing, amazing mini masterclass. Thank you so much, Chris Dyer, for pouring into us and really teaching us some basic fundamentals on how to think into greater results. Chris, if you don't mind, I would love for you to share what is the best way for our audience to connect with you, and or share with us any upcoming either events or programs or something that you're working on that can help our attendees, our viewers, think into greater results. So, and I just want to say thank you so much.
No, thank you, Carol. And as a matter of fact, the Neville Goddard book, I think you got the big one too, right?
I did. I ordered it.
I'm actually, and just this me thinking off the cuff, is like, I want to share this with everyone. I'm going to do a book study. We're going to start with Neville Goddard. And because he just puts a nice bow on it all, really.
He really does.
I mean, my self-concept gets expanded every time I sit down, and I have my I have my one chair. That's my reading and thinking chair. That's where all my ideas and my clarity come from. And we all need to create spaces like that for ourselves. So yes, I'm going to do a book study group. I also have the Reset, Refocus, Restore Women's Retreat coming up in Costa Rica. in 2024. That is February 16th through the 21st, intentionally right after Valentine's Day. It is a business-minded experience. This is for the businesswoman who really wants to learn how to work above her business and pour into herself. So you get the best of both worlds. So find me on LinkedIn, Chris Dyer, Chris Dyer Consulting. I'm on Instagram, Chris Dyer Consulting. On Facebook, I'm on all the social platforms, and I have a YouTube channel. And Carol, I'll be tagging you with the video for you that I'm going to be promoting with your Win-Win Women TV. So I'm super excited about that launch.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm super excited about that launch as well. And I'm really excited about your new book study program and your Reset, Refocus retreat in Costa Rica. You have a lot of wonderful things happening. Chris, thank you so much for sharing your time, your brilliance, and pouring into Beautiful Faces Going Places. All right, everyone. Thank you all. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Natalie. Have an amazing, amazing day, an amazing week, and an amazing remainder of 2023. Let's go.
Thank you.